सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। 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 13th मंत्र। एतत् श्रुत्वा सम्परिगृह्य मर्त्यः प्रवृह्य धर्म्यमणुमेतमाप्य समोदते मोदनीयं हि लब्ध्वा विवृतं सद्म नचिकेतसं मन्ये। अन्यत्र धर्मादन्यत्राधर्मात् अन्यत्रास्मात् कृताकृतात् अन्यत्र भूताच्च भव्याच्च यत्तत् पश्यसि तद्वद। सर्वे वेदा यत्पदमामनन्ति तपांसि सर्वाणि च यद्वदन्ति यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण ब्रवीमि। Om Ityetat. Did we see 15th mantra in the last session? We did not, right? Okay. 13th mantra, Yamacharya is telling Nachiketa that this truth which you have asked for, O Nachiketa, as your third boon, the way to attain that truth is by listening. We have to see the truth. For that, what we have to do? Keep our eyes closed and keep our ears open. The Shravanam which is coming through the study of Vedanta, that Shravanam will create Prama in our heart. That Shravanam will create clear knowledge in our understanding. That is called as Etat Shrutva. There are different stages, different types of Shravanam that a person can do. One Shravanam is called as Apatata Shravanam. Apatata Shravanam means here and there we listen to spiritual topics. It is topic-based talks. You listen to one topic somewhere, another topic somewhere else, and there is a long gap in between. Now it is much better than not listening. It will create some impression. But if you do systematic Shravanam, you pick up a text, go verse by verse, understand every word of that verse. That is called as Vidhivat Shravanam. Vidhivat Shravanam means it's a committed Shravanam and a very systematic type of Shravanam. Now the impact of systematic study is greater than sporadic study. With lot of gaps in between, systematically studying is better. We will ourselves feel we are getting a good hold over the text. Otherwise, we might have studied several texts, but it doesn't leave an impression. We ourselves feel many a times, right? When I'm in the class, I feel I'm getting it. But if somebody asks me to recap and say, explain this topic, that time I find it difficult. So that is one stage of Shravanam, where we are hearing it systematically also, but recap becomes difficult. But in that systematic Shravanam, one Shravanam is just to listen. Another is, you have the book in hand. You are looking at the verse, which verse you are chanting. And you are sitting in one place and listening. Some Shravanam we do while multitasking. Ironing also will be done, chopping, cooking, walking, and Shravanam also. It leaves an impact. We cannot say it doesn't create an impact. But when we systematically sit down and listen with a book, the impact is greater. In addition to that, if we gather all the points, which are the key points in that topic, take notes. That is better than just listening. Because we know how powerful our memory is. If we have this expectation that I will listen and 1 week later I'll memorize or recap whatever was done last time, it doesn't come. So that is one commitment where we are gathering all the key ideas. What can be greater than this? After having written down, I reflect upon it also. Whatever little Shravanam I am doing, on that I am reflecting myself to gain more clarity. Whether the topic is Bhajagovindam, whether the topic is some Upanishad, or even if that topic is Brahma Sutra. When we start doing Shravanam in this way, we realize no topic is difficult. What I have to work on is the way in which I am doing Shravanam. Am I doing several things and listening? Or am I sitting down in one place and listening? Even while I am sitting down, how am I grasping? Have I understood the main concept? And has it stayed with me? If it has stayed with me, did I spend more time with it? If I spend more time with it, the next concept will become easier than the previous one. And we will realize it is building blocks. On one block you have the second block, on that you are building the third concept. Different concepts are getting built. Such kind of Shravanam is called as Etat Shrutva. Having heard in this way, having understood the gist of the teaching, Samparigrihya Martya, internalized it very well. And he has discerned the self from the not self. Pravruhya means discerned. Pravruhya dharmyam anumetamapyah. One who abides in this self, it is not some dry intellectual knowledge. Samodate modaniyam hi labdhva. He is able to look at his life from the standpoint of that consciousness. He has understood himself to be devoid of conditionings. As that Shuddha Chaitanya, he is looking at every experience, every facet of life. And as pure consciousness, he suddenly starts feeling many problems are disappearing. What he thought was so real his way of thinking now is it part of Atma or Anatma? He says, no matter which experience it is part of Anatma. And I am that Atma which is different from this Anatma. Not that all the time he has problems. Whenever problems are there, he thinks in this way. If problems are not there, then he is happy by himself. Without conditionings, in his unconditioned existence, he revels. That is the goal. Yamacharya says, this is where we have to reach. It's a positive reveling, it's not an absence of sorrow. It is not only absence of sorrow, this Atma, Atma Rati. He can sport with Atma. Atma Rati, Atma Krida, Kriyavan. Atma Krida means just like a musician sports with Swara, this sadhaka can sport with Atma. He has discovered the self as his own nature and he is reveling, getting joy in it. This kind of palace of bliss, Sadma means palace. Yamacharya says, Nachiketa, the doors are open for you. You can enter whenever you want. There is nobody who is going to stop you. Like Jaya Vijaya, nobody at the doors. You have a free pass. Gain self-abidance whenever you want. For a sadhaka, it's a struggle to open that door. Because mind again and again goes back to Vishayas. Mind goes back to world again. But Yamacharya says for Nachiketa, that abidance is effortless. Now Nachiketa repeats his question. He says, tell me about that truth, which is beyond dharma and adharma. Tell me about that truth, which is beyond bad, adharma, but which is beyond good also. How did we understand this? What is the meaning of dharma, adharma here? Which is beyond ahankara. Dharma and adharma belongs to ego, the limited I, the small I. Nachiketa is telling, my question is not about ahankara. If you tell me, do some tapasya, if you tell me, gain some more knowledge, if you tell me, do some more karma. Morning class we saw this. Tapasvibhyo dikho yogi, jnanibhyaschabi adhikaha mataha. Compared to tapasvi, compared to jnani, compared to karmi, yogi is superior. Means Nachiketa is telling, I am not asking something in the realm of this ego. Not something which I have to do and then get the result. Is there such a thing which is beyond ahankara also? If it is, then please tell me what is it. That is his first indicator of his question. Second indicator is anyatra asmat kruta krutat. Tell me that which is beyond. What is the meaning of kruta? Effect. Akruta means cause. Tell me that which is beyond cause and effect. And anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha. Tell me about that truth which is unconditioned by time. It doesn't get affected by time. It will not go away with time. It will not even come in time. Because whatever comes, it has to go one day. Kabir Dashi says, Kabira, avata javata so maya. He says, what is maya? Coming and going is maya. If there is something which will come at some point, there is a time when it will go away. So I am not seeking that truth which has coming and going. Anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha yattat pashyasi tadvada. Whatever you are seeing it right now, that thing you teach me. Then Yamacharya starts teaching of that truth, where he says, Sarve Vedaha yat padamam ananti. Padam generally means a position. Padam means, like Yamaraja Padam. Padam means a position where somebody will go and sit. But here Padam means goal. Padam means goal, and Amananti means assertion. It is that what all Vedas assert. All Vedas assert. What is the meaning of all Vedas? The Karma Kanda part of Vedas, the Upasana part of Veda, and Vedanta part of Veda. Vedas are broadly divided into three categories. Karma Kanda, the rituals, Upasana, the meditation, and Vedanta part, which is the knowledge part. The proportion of these mantras are something like this. 96% mantras are Karma and Upasana. 96% of the mantras, they are Karma and Upasana. 4% is Vedanta. And Yamacharya is telling here the description of 96% of Vedas. That purpose is also to attain that same Brahman. Sarve Vedaha Yat Padamamananti, that goal which I have asked, to attain that same goal, the entire Veda has its Tatparya. The Tatparya of Vedas is in that same goal. Once, all Devatas, they had a doubt. If I read Shiva Purana, the deity there is Bhagwan Shiva. If I read Ramayana, the deity is Bhagwan Rama. The main essence of Ramayana is Bhagwan Rama. You read Devi Mahatmya, the essence is Devi. Now if you read Vedas, what is the essence of Vedas? Is it Bhagwan Rama? Is it Bhagwan Shiva? Is it some deity? So they went to Brahmaji. They said, Brahmaji, please answer our question. What is the essence of Vedas? In those days, whenever they had doubt, they would do Havan. So Brahmaji says, let us do one yajna. Through that, we will get our answer. So now, which place should we choose? Then they choose Chidambaram. That place, we say we will do this yajna. And when they do the yajna, the murti which comes out of it, that is Nataraja Shiva. And he gives this knowledge to everybody that the essence of Vedas is Brahma. Adi Guru, Bhagwan Shiva, he gives the teaching that although we are doing Karma Kanda, we might be doing Upasana, the essence is not in Karma and Upasana. The essence is that same self-abidance. Now the way to connect both of this is, otherwise you might wonder, how is Karma Kanda related to gaining knowledge? If you organize simple Bhagavad Saptaha, minimum time you have to sit there is 6 hours. And if you say somebody wants to be the Yajman, they will say before the Saptaha begins, 4 hours we will do Yajna. So you have to sit in that Yajna for 4 hours. And in those 7 days, you cannot eat certain things. You have to follow certain disciplines, where you will sleep, what you will do. Everything is restricted. And some rituals, they will keep certain items. And the condition is you should not see that item. If you see, then the whole result is gone of that ritual. And you know how our mind works. You say, if you don't see, that is what it will want to see. Ganesh Chaturthi time, second day's moon, Dvitiya Chand, they say you should not see. Generally, we never look at moon. But on that day, I don't know what happens. While driving, again and again we look. Means that ritual will bring lot of sadhana chatushtaya. What we call as titiksha, what we call as uparati, control over sense organs, disciplining the mind. So Yamacharya says those ritualistic portion of Vedas, their purpose is not only to go to Swarga. Their purpose is to gain these qualifications so that we can gain Brahma Vidya. Sarve Vedaha Yat Padamamananti, all of them are indicating to that same goal. Some of them are in preparatory stages, some of them are the later stages. So Vedanta is a later stage towards that goal, where it is just talking about nature of that goal. And karma yoga part, they are the preparatory part, but they are not an end in themselves. This is one uniqueness of Sanatana Dharma. All do's and don'ts don't end in themselves. Whatever restrictions are given, whatever do's and don'ts are given, we say the goal is Bhagavad Prapti only. Otherwise, just imagine, remove this goal of self-abidance, remove this goal of Brahma. At what realm are we working now? Only body, mind, intellect. And what sadhanas do we have? Do's and don'ts for body, do's and don'ts for mind, do's and don'ts for intellect. At some point, person will start thinking, until when am I going to do this? He might also say, I am doing the right things. Is that all? Or is there something more? What is my end goal? Was this do's and don'ts, were these do's and don'ts the end in themselves, or will they take me somewhere else? Brahmacharya says that will take us to the next step, which is Brahma. Sarve Vedaha yat padamam ananti. Tapamsi sarvani cha yad vadanti. Whatever austerities are mentioned in Vedas, they are also not for their own sake. They are also to attain the same Brahman. Austerity at physical body level. 17th chapter, Bhagavan Krishna says, being respectful to revered people is tapasya at physical body level. At speech level, Bhagavan says, speaking in a non-agitating way. That is tapasya at speech level. And maintaining a cheerful mind in spite of triggers being present. Bhagavan says that is tapasya at mind level. Body level being respectful, speech level non-agitating, mind level being cheerful. But why is that person doing this tapasya? For that same Bhagavad Prapti. His goal is self-abidance, his goal is attaining Bhagwan. Keeping that in mind, he does tapasya. Otherwise, we might get attached to the tapasya only. And we might start comparing ourselves with somebody else as tapasya as the metric. Either it is external tapasya or it is internal tapasya. External tapasya means rounds of japa. Compared to a person who does 10 rounds, compared to a person who does 25 rounds, the external number is not a metric of how much spiritual progress he has made. Because the main metric is how much his vairagya has increased. Does he want Bhagwan wholeheartedly? Or is he still getting stuck with something of this world? That is the true measure, not the sadhana itself. Because that sadhana, that tapasya was a means, it was not the end goal. End goal is self-abidance. To what extent he can understand Jagat is mithya, to what extent he has understood Brahman alone is Satyam. That is the true metric, because that is the goal. All tapasya that he is doing is a means. Tapamsi sarvani cha yadvadanti. Yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti. Nachiketa, whatever you asked as your third boon, seeking that alone, people walk on the path of brahmacharya. Yad ichanto means wanting that goal alone, brahmacharyam charanti. They walk on the path of brahmacharya. Now what is this brahmacharya over here? One whose achara is conducive for seeking Brahman. One whose conduct, one whose interactions in the world, transactions in the world are conducive to attain Brahman, that person is called as Brahmachari. We have heard the word Karmachari, right? Karmachari means what? Employer or employee. employee. Karmachari means his achara is around karma. Whatever job is given to him, he does it well. In the same way, one whose achara is conducive for Brahma is called as Brahmachari. One whose achara is conducive for karma is called as Karmachari. One whose achara is conducive for Brahman, gaining Brahman, abiding in Brahman, that person is Brahmachari. It is not referring to an ashrama. Shankaracharya translates Brahmacharya as Gurukula Vasa. One who is willing to stay in a monastery. But even if he goes to monastery, what does he get there? A lifestyle conducive for spiritual growth. All the interactions, all the inputs that he is receiving from the world are conducive for self-abidance. That is this Brahmacharya. Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti. Means whenever an erroneous input comes, he becomes very alert. Yesterday somebody was telling me, when I was driving to Berkeley, that these self-driving cars, they have a camera. If you look at your phone, it starts beeping, it seems. Pay attention to the road. One camera should be inside, which is our intellect. Whenever mind goes towards things which are not conducive for self-abidance, it should bring it back. To the extent it becomes powerful, to that extent this sadhaka can move forward in a spiritual path. Can somebody help? I think they don't know how to turn it off. Okay. Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti. So Brahmacharya is not a particular person or a particular ashrama over here, but it is a lifestyle conducive for spiritual progress. So when he has to decide his priorities, when he has to decide what to do, what not to do, his main thing is it going to help me in self-abidance? Whatever is agitating the mind, whatever is disturbing the mind, that he stays away from. That is this, Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti, Tatte Padam Sangrahena Bravimi. That same goal, I am going to elaborate in brief. Yamacharya says, I am going to elaborate in brief. And that goal is called as Om. What you have asked for, Nachiketa, as the third boon, the secret of your question is the meaning of the word Om. Now, ordinary student must have felt, is that it? I thought he has built up the, question to such a point that he is going to tell some great secret. And he is telling that secret is called as Om. In Upanishad Ganga, there is one episode on Omkara. It's a very beautiful episode where one disciple, he goes to his guru and he says, please teach me Brahma Vidya, teach me the secret. Guru says, in our ashram, first you have to do seva. Then only you get entitled to ask question. That is the rule. First you have to do seva, stay here for few years. So he stays there 2-3 years. Then he gets impatient, he says, now can you tell me? He says, not yet. Stay for few more years, serve. 5 years go by. Again he goes and asks, now can you tell me? Teacher says, okay, tomorrow you come early morning, 3:30, finish all your Sandhya Vandanam, Japa, everything you finish and you come, I will tell you. He comes early morning, ready with all Bhasma Vibhuti, everything, to gain this secret. Teacher says, I cannot tell you loudly, because mantra has to be given Gupta. You know that thing about mantra, right? It is called as Gupta Paribhashi. It is not publicized widely. Whenever it is gained secretly from the Guru, it has the power to become a guide in that person's life. Gupta Paribhashi means if somebody does siddhi of a mantra, that mantra becomes his secret advisor. So he says, I cannot tell you loudly, come closer. Upanayanam also, when the father has to tell the mantra to the child, how does he tell? Make him sit on his lap, then he secretly tells that mantra. So that student come closer, and then secretly he says, what you asked for, that supreme most truth, that is Om. He also feels surprised. Is that it? Stays little longer, maybe teacher will tell something. He says, no, that is it. You go and meditate. But teacher has told, so he goes. That day while going for Bhiksha, he's thinking about Om. Teacher has given me secret. But then he sees ancient Indian village, everybody is transacting by saying Om. The vegetable seller, he is giving some vegetables. Person who is receiving is saying Om. While giving, that vegetable seller is saying Om. Then one class is going on. Teacher starts by chanting Om thrice. He says, people are greeting each other by saying Hari Om. Everywhere Om is heard. This is a secret mantra. Everybody knows it. So he goes back to his teacher. He says, you told me you will tell me a secret, but looks like everybody knows that mantra. What is the secret? Teacher goes inside, brings one stone. And he says, whoever you met today, go and ask them what is the value of this stone. Don't sell it, but just go and find market value. What they say is the value of this stone. First he goes to that vegetable seller. The Hindi dialogues are very nice, Upanishad Ganga. Iska kya daam hai? What is the price of this? That vegetable seller says, maybe 1 kilo of potatoes. And dhania and mirch you take free. Little bit more I will put. Chilies and cilantro I will put additional. That is your price. Then he goes to another cotton vendor who was making gaddi, the mattress. He says, I will give you 1 bag of cotton. Everybody saw it with their own eyes. Whatever they valued, they saw. Finally, he goes to a jeweler. He says, what is the value of this stone? That jeweler tells him, first tell me who gave you this stone. Because it belongs to the royal treasury. If somebody finds you with that, you will be in trouble. It belongs to some king. Then he tells him, it is my guru who gave me. Jeweler also understands. King must have come and given to his guru. But he says, this is worth several thousand gold coins. A very precious stone it is. Then he comes back to his guru and he says, this is what I found. Different people told me different prices. Guru says, just like everybody touched that jewel, everybody saw that jewel, that stone, but not everybody knew the value of it. In the same way, everybody is saying Om. They might greet each other with Hari Om. But not everybody understands the glory, the meaning, and the power of Om. So if you do Purascharanam, do Dhyanam, meditate upon the meaning of Om, that alone will bring whatever you want in life. It is powerful enough. Don't doubt the efficacy of this mantra. Now, one thing to appreciate here is Kathopanishad is part of Vedas. During Vedic times, the mantra Om was very popular. Imagine if people are using it in their colloquial transaction, how widespread that mantra must be. And their gods were also different. Like we chant Bhadram Karne Vishunuyama Devaha. In the last line we chant, may Indra Bhagwan be happy, may Garud Bhagwan be happy, and so on. But in today's time, we don't connect as much with those deities. Do we have a picture of Indra Bhagwan in our altar? Agni Devata, Vayu Devata. They were Vedic time deities. And they were symbolized, they were represented by Om. In today's context, if you want to understand meaning of Om, it is the same meaning which comes to mind or which should come to mind when we say Krishna. When we say Rama, when we say Bhagwan Shiva, what is meant by the name of Bhagwan Rama, Bhagwan Shiva, that is the same meaning of the word Om. In simple words, consciousness along with Maya Upadhi. Consciousness along with the causal conditioning, that is called as Saguna Rupa of Bhagavan. Consciousness plus Maya is Saguna Rupa of Bhagavan, which we call as Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Shiva, Bhagwan Vishnu. But consciousness by itself is untouched by the Upadhi. Consciousness by itself is untouched by Upadhi, so Bhagavan doesn't get affected by his conditioning. But the total conditioning which is there, that belongs to Bhagavan. Total causal conditioning, total subtle conditioning, and total gross conditioning. All of that is Bhagavan's conditioning, which we call as Ishvara. And what we understand as Bhagwan Shiva, Bhagwan Krishna, their form is the appearance part of it, the Rupa part of it. But in essence, what is the meaning of Krishna, Shiva and Rama is the same meaning of Om. In simple words, what does Om mean? Om means Bhagavan. Now this is where I had mentioned in the last class, if a child asks what is the meaning of Om, this is the best answer. The bhavana that should come in our heart when we say Krishna is the same bhavana which should come when we say Om. But because we are not that familiar with Om, that bhavana doesn't come. We are more familiar with name of Bhagavan as Krishna, Rama, Shiva. But are they different? It is one and the same. Now, the authentic place to get the meaning of Om is Mandukya Upanishad. That is where the whole Upanishad is talking about what is the meaning of this Om. We will just see it in brief, we won't go into details of it. But it's very fascinating to appreciate how our rishis have thought about this sound Om. Actually, they have not thought about it. It's a primordial sound of creation. Om and Atha were the two words that Brahmaji uttered before starting this whole creation. Om and Atha. And the beauty of this is, if you just bring sound from your, or if you just make the air come from your navel and constrict the mouth, that itself will create the sound Om. O and Ma, you don't have to pronounce Ma separately. You just close your mouth and allow that air to keep going out, it will pronounce Ma. And O is that sound which will come from Nabhi. All the way, it will create that sound without touching any other part of the mouth. You want to try it? Let us say Om together and you see, pay attention to this sound, what is happening there. Om. Just notice when you say O, that air is not touching any part of your mouth. Straight from the Nabhi, that sound is produced. And when you close the lips, close the mouth, Makara is produced. That is this Om sound. Now Om is formed of 3 syllables. A, U and Ma. Akara, Ukara, Makara. A and U together becomes O. So when we chant Om, we have to chant Om only. We don't need to say Aum. A and O, Sandhi happens. It is Om. Now each syllable has specific mapping. So Akara represents the waking world and the waker. Waker and waking world is represented by the syllable a. Now when you say waking world, what all thing comes to your mind? This room is part of waking world? It is part of waking world. The city we are in right now, San Jose. Whatever is in San Jose, is it part of waking world? It is part of waking world. Whatever is part of America, is it part of waking world? Waking world. Whatever is experience on this earth, is it part of waking world? It is part of waking world. How about all other planets? Everything is part of waking world. So that word a looks very innocent. We think waking world means this room around me. But whatever can be experienced in waking state is included in the word a, in the syllable a. Waker and waking state is Akara. Then comes U. U is representing dream world. Dreamer and dream world, the subtle creation, that is represented by Ukara. Dreamer and dream world, the subtle creation, is represented by Ukara. Then Makara is representing deep sleeper and causal world. Deep sleeper and causal world, that is represented by Makara. Now tell me, other than these three, is there something left out in this creation? Consciousness is not part of creation. Huh? Within creation, is there anything left out when we say waking world, dream world, deep sleep world, waker, dreamer, deep sleeper? When you have said all these things as Akara, Ukara, Makara, there is nothing remaining in creation which is not included in A, U and Ma. That's why Mandukya Upanishad starts by saying this whole universe that you are seeing is Om. What is represented by waking world, dream world and deep sleep world, that itself is this whole universe. Sometimes what happens is, we think universe means only waking world. Universe means only gross world. And what Vedanta wants to tell us is, this is only 1/3 of creation. There is 1/3 subtle creation, 1/3 causal creation. And what we see as waking world is a small part of the manifest world which we are seeing. All of that put together is represented by Om. Now that sound Om, when you chant it and you become quiet, the silence that follows Om, that silence represents Turiya. That silence represents consciousness, which is also called as Amatra. Now the beauty of Om. While we were having the sound Om, was silence there or was it absent? Did the silence get created after the sound stopped? Or was it there even when the sound was there? How many of you say it came about later, after you stopped? Don't be afraid. It was distinctly noticed after sound stopped. Silence was noticed after sound stopped. But even while the sound was there, even while Om sound was there, the substratum was silence only. That is why we could hear that sound. If you had somebody else speaking something in one mic and you chant Om in the other mic, you will not hear Om. because that sound is also interfering. Because there was silence, on that silence we could hear this sound Om. In the same way, when this creation is appearing, gross world, subtle world and causal world, the substratum of gross, subtle and causal creation is consciousness. Just like the silence is substratum of A, U and Ma, Turiya or Chaitanya is a substratum of this whole universe. So when I chant Om, Brahmacharya says this is what we have to meditate upon. That Om is not some ordinary word, it represents this whole universe. And that Chaitanya which is pervading it. I can take Om as my support and meditate upon this concept. There is one consciousness which is pervading waking, dream and deep sleep. This whole universe is pervaded by that same consciousness that is represented by Om. First analogy is simple, right? That silence is present even when there is sound. Consciousness is present even when we are perceiving creation. Now the second one, whether sound is there or not, does it affect silence? Silence is unaffected by the presence and absence of sound. In the same way, consciousness is unaffected by the presence and absence of creation. Turiya Brahma is unaffected by presence or absence of Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. It is unaffected by Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Now that silence, can you say it belongs to Akara? Can you say it belongs to Ukara? Or it belongs to only Makara? We cannot say it belongs to one. It is a substratum in which all three are appearing. Like that consciousness, we cannot say it belongs to some object in this waking state, or it is an object in this waking state. Like you have object A, object B, you will not have consciousness as object C. It doesn't belong to any state, it is the substratum of all three states. Just like silence doesn't belong to only Akara, only Ukara, only Makara, it is that substratum in which A, U, Ma appears. That consciousness is what we are trying to understand. So Brahmacharya says, what you have asked for, Nachiketa, that is this consciousness, which is Om. Now he starts elaborating the glory of this Om. You see what he says, next mantra. Etadhevaksharam Brahma Etadhevaksharam Param Etadhevaksharam Jnatva Yoyadicchati tasya tate Etadhevaksharam Brahma Etadhevaksharam Param Etadhevaksharam Jnatva Yoyadicchati tasya tate. Etadhi eva aksharam Brahma. What you have asked for, this Om alone is that supreme Brahman. And it is that same Brahman which is Saguna also and it is Nirguna also. They are not two different Brahmans, it is one consciousness. So here when you say Etadhi eva aksharam Brahma, you should add one more word, Saguna Brahma. That Om alone appears as Saguna Brahma. Etadhi eva aksharam Param. That same Om appears as Nirguna Brahma also. Not appears as, it is Nirguna Brahma. So in this BMI chart, that Om is called as Param without conditioning. But when it takes on the conditioning of Maya, that same Om is called as Saguna Brahma. Because Guna are part of Maya. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they belong to Maya. So consciousness seen through the lens of Maya is Saguna. And consciousness devoid of Maya is Nirguna. Etad hi eva aksharam jnatva. This Saguna Brahma, having known about it and having done upasana about it, means having worshipped Om as Saguna, yo yadicchati tasya tat. Whatever a person wants in life, he can attain, he can accomplish that particular goal. Means if upasana is recommended, upasana is given as sadhana, it is something that we have to know and do. Means I'll have to chant Om and think about the meaning of Om in that way. That which is this whole universe and consciousness pervading this whole universe, that I'm meditating upon through Om. Now you see how Om is very similar, or it is Bhagwan's name only. When we say Vishwarupa Bhagavan, how do we meditate? It is the same consciousness pervading this whole universe and represented by this form of the Lord, this name of the Lord. And that upasana will give whatever result that person, that sadhaka is seeking. There was one Mahatma Ji, his name was Udiya Babaji. He had done upasana of Annapurna Devi. And in his ashram, the main seva would be Annadanam. There were no other too much of facilities or anything. But one thing which would never fall short is food. And he himself would say, this is the power of Annapurna Upasana. That was the Upasana that he had done. So many kshetras which were there, right? Even now which are there. Kali Kambliwala, that's a famous one. Constant Sadhu Mahatmas constantly are getting fed because the Mahatma who started it had done Annapurna Upasana. So whatever result he wants, whatever result is being sought, that result will come to that person through Upasana. But what about the one who is seeking Brahman, Nirguna Brahma? He says, Nirguna Brahma, we don't have to do anything. We just have to know that this is who I am. In Nirguna Brahma, there is no doing, only knowing. In Saguna Brahma, there is knowing plus doing of Upasana. And through that doing, whatever results we want, we can get. But one who wants Nirguna Brahma, they say have Vairagya. No results seeking anything, seek only that truth. One who wants it will get it. There is a very famous line Shankaracharya writes in this commentary, Param chet jnatavyam. If you are seeking the Nirguna Brahma, it is only knowledge. Just know it as one's own self. Aparam chet praptavyam. If it is Saguna Brahma, one has to do upasana of it and get whatever result they are seeking. One trivia about this word Om is it is used even in other religions, other schools of thought. They also have word Om in their scriptures. In Bauddha Dharma, there is one mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. They have this mantra which starts with Om. In Jain Dharma, they have Om Namo Arihantanam. So Om is there even in their mantra. In Sikh religion, the text itself is called Ik Omkar, Karta Purukh. That one truth of this universe is called as Om. And even those schools of thoughts where they did not accept ritualism, they accepted Om. In many other schools of thoughts, they accepted Om as the support. So all of that is the glory of Om. Yamacharya says, this is what I am going to elaborate now in brief. Okay, few mantras he'll talk about it. Then the main teaching of glory of Om will begin. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.